see you?
No. I couldn't bear to see anybody. I'm a mess.
Oh, you could never be a mess.
That's right, the Twilight Zone has finally decided to do a funny episode, a comedy episode, and honestly, I'm here for it. This series is dead serious. While other anthology shows I've covered before, especially Tales from the Dark Side, I typically don't like the comic episodes. I actually like this one a lot. And watching these in order, this is actually exactly what we need right now. We are 31 episodes into this series, and we're still on season 1. And there has been nothing even approaching anything funny. We've got some great episodes, we got some average ones, but finally we get a lighthearted one that has a funny dynamic between a love-stricken man by the name of Roger Shackelforth, who is in love with a girl, Leela, who is just completely out of his league. She's prissy, she's rich, and she just has no time for this guy. Seems like they dated a little bit, but he didn't get very far, and she's dumped him. However, this is the Twilight Zone, so luckily there is someone who can give him a love potion that can make her fall in love with him. This is not an episode written by Rod Serling. He's going to do the next one. It's written by John Henry Collar and Robert Presnell Jr., two guys who will write no other episode. And it's unfortunate because this doesn't feel like a Rod Serling episode, and I actually think that's a good thing to break up the pace. But it's unfortunate these guys didn't get another one. This is one that gets lost in the shuffle. Not too many people talk about it, but I think it's actually really good and exactly what the series needs at this point. But it does falter towards the later half. I think the funniest parts of this episode is him trying to get with this girl and being rejected. Once he gets the love potion, she's going to fall in love with him. But as I showed in the intro, he goes to this phone booth and tries to talk to her, and she is just not interested at all, making excuses. It's also a funny dynamic because, of course, this is 1960, so no cell phones. So you had to actually go to a phone booth, and people just had to wait. They had to wait for you to finish this phone call. So a line starts forming because he just keeps trying to talk to this girl over and over again and calling her, and people are getting annoyed with him. In my life, I don't think I've ever actually used a phone booth. In middle school, we did have a payphone that I would sometimes use to get my parents to pick me up after I did like baseball or lacrosse. Our main character, Roger, is an average-looking guy, but it's more the fact that he's just so pushy and is laying it on way too thick that she's not interested in him. And once he gets this love potion, which he buys from Professor Damon for $1, he has to figure out some way to let her see him once again, so he just shows up at her house, and once again, the interaction is hilarious. The main actress does such a great job showing her disgust.
Hello, Leela.
I told you I was busy tonight.
Another bit of great acting. She doesn't have to say any words here. You can tell she doesn't want him to come in. But she eventually does let him, and says they can have one drink, since he's actually going to spike the drink with his love potion. It's a little creepy. It's going to get creepier. His love interest, Layla, is played by Patricia Barry, who just nails this role. Not only is she good looking, but she does the thing actresses are supposed to be able to do. You can tell what she's thinking with just her eyes and her moving her mouth without her actually saying it. And of course, because she was in a Twilight Zone episode, she lived until 2016. Until the age of 93, and was acting up until that point. Look at this resume. Do I have to say anything more? She was in absolutely everything. And I probably have seen her in other stuff. I just don't exactly remember. She just has one of those faces you want to smooch. Not now, but back then. Roger is played by George Grizzard, who lived until the age of 79, died in 2007, having been born in 1928. Which I have to say, going from being born in the 20s to dying in 2007, I don't think there's ever been a bigger change in the world. Imagine growing up in the 30s and then going all the way to 2007. I mean, the amount of things that changed from the 1200s to the 1300s, not that much. But 28, 2007, it's a whole new world. He was in 3 episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, the series Bus Stop, and we'll see him again in Season 4, Episode 1, in his image of the Twilight Zone. So he puts the love potion in Leela's drink, and it takes a few minutes for it to start working. At first he's not sure. She tells him to leave, and he puts his head down like a sad puppy dog, thinking she's never going to love him. And then as he's about to leave, she begins smooching him and wants him to stay over. You know what that means. And predictably what we get is that she falls in love with him too much. She begins smothering him. Now this is where I think the episode starts faltering a bit, because the examples they give of her smothering him don't really seem that bad. Like, he's trying to read the newspaper. She has to give him a massage. He says no. She's kissing him a little bit. He says no. But it really doesn't seem that bad. But we're told after 6 months, they do eventually get married, and he begins to get tired of this. While this would make sense, even if it's a girl you're really into, you don't want her to be around 24/7, they could have done a better job of having her do more extreme things. Let's say that he's like trying to sleep, and then he wakes up and she's staring right at his face, and you're like, whoa, dude, that's kind of creepy. Maybe she never lets go of his hand. He tries to go to the bathroom. She won't let go of his hand. He tries to go into the kitchen. She will never let go of him. But there are parts where he says no, and she kind of goes away. Then she comes back, but it doesn't seem as overwhelming as I think they could have made it. Obviously, anyone can get too much attention. If someone literally hangs on your neck 24/7, that would annoy anyone. So it goes back to the professor, and in the earlier conversation, he mentions he has this glove cleaner. They never use the word murder in this episode. They keep saying glove cleaner. I know this is a reference to the short story that this is based on, and I did read the short story. It's very short, like literally a couple pages. So this episode had to expand upon that short story a lot. And I think the glove cleaner is supposed to be another potion that either gets rid of the love potion, or more likely actually does kill her. Since he does ask him, like, is there something to reverse this effect, to just go back to the way it was? He says no, but he says he has this glove cleaner. So I think he gives him an elixir to put in her drink so that she dies. This obviously seems super extreme. He doesn't go through with it, but for such a lighthearted episode, this is where, as I said, maybe this does need a bit of touch-up from some other writers, because they don't do a good job of showing that she's too affectionate. She just doesn't do anything that annoying, but they absolutely could show. There's plenty of movies that have portrayed insane women who like walk around with a knife and be like, let me cut your bread for you. And then the idea that he wouldn't just leave her. If he doesn't want to be with her, he could just leave her. What is she gonna do, track him down? But it ends on a nice note. He doesn't end up going through with it, and they just stay together for the rest of their lives. So it does falter at the end. I consider this about an 8 most of the way through, but I'm going to give it a 7 just because there's some stumbles towards the end. Would have been better if he just sold him like another potion that said it was going to reverse the love potion and then maybe made her fall in love with him even more. That would be kind of a funny outcome. Maybe I'll write this episode for him. But it doesn't seem to fit his character that he would even consider this, rather than just leaving her. If he wants to leave her, he can leave her. It's 1960. Think it's easy to track people down back then? Of course not. Or you maybe just deal with a hot girl wanting to give you massages a lot. So the Chaser is going to give a 7 out of 10. And some fun facts. So at the top it says, this episode was adapted by Robert Presnell Jr. He gets a writing credit from the short story The Chaser by John Collier. Also gets a credit. And the script was originally written for and produced live on television on the Billy Rose Television Theater in 1951. And the episode's director, Douglas Hayes, said, in the book Serling, The Rise and Twilight of the Television's Last Angry Man, he's quoted as saying, that was one of the great things about the Twilight Zone. I had total freedom. Sometimes I would think of an idea that would make the episode more Twilight Zone-y, but that would require some expense. I remember the episode, The Chaser, that's this one, in which I devised a huge bookcase that must have doubled the budget. That's where Roger meets the professor. And yeah, I could totally see this not being in the script. There's this huge library, and he hides the potions behind the books. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, but sure, I'm for anything that makes it more visually pleasing rather than just meeting in like a conference room. But he's hiding potions behind books. Alright. Would have made more sense to maybe just have a less expensive set that had a ton of potions in it. But it goes on to say, in which I devised a huge bookcase that must have doubled the budget. But Serling, producer Buck Houghton, never blinked an eye. They just said, great. I didn't have to argue with anyone over the money. They'd argue about the money and let me have it. I knew that they were having problems with Jim Aubrey, but they kept them away from me. My responsibility was to get the job done. But yeah, they were probably printing money back then. And we covered Tales from the Crypt later this year. This short story will be developed into Love to Death. So as unoriginal as this sounds, a love potion, it does seem like this is one of the first stories to do it. Maybe that's why we're seeing so many adaptations. It's just been done to death now. And this is the only first season episode not written by Rod Serling, Charles Beaumont, the greatest person ever, and Richard Matheson. They'll never use these guys again. Next up is episode 32 of Passage for Trumpet. And check out our playlist for all the series we cover in order. Well, they got out of order. I have to reorganize them. I don't know what's going on with these playlists. They just get out of order for no reason. I actually looked it up. It's actually a YouTube glitch. It's not me, I swear. We're currently doing Black Mirror, Mystery Science Theater 3000, Are You Afraid of the Dark, The Twilight Zone, and American Horror Story. Thanks a lot.